The NBA's trade deadline is looming this week, and the entire basketball world seems to be extra cautious, waiting for some dominoes to fall. This is the time of the year where everything gets a little bit crazy, because the changes that are made in this period have a history of changing the entire course of the season, and teams that you may not have expected to be active can enter the fray and throw everything off. This brings us to today's video, where I will be making 4 bold predictions for this year's trade deadline. There are a lot of rumors swirling right now, but most of the deals that actually go down tend to catch people by surprise, which is what I'm trying to tackle. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first bold prediction for the trade deadline that I have is that the Golden State Warriors are going to trade one of their core members. When I say core members, I'm referring to the 4 players that have played a huge role in them winning the 2022 championship that are still on the team: Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Andrew Wiggins. Now, right off the bat, it's probably safe to take Steph Curry out of consideration for this take, because he's the one that the team is still trying to build around to salvage their season. The other 3, however, are very much fair game in the coming days. Right now, the Warriors could very easily be considered the most disappointing team in the entire NBA. They're sitting in 12th place in the Western Conference, and the only 3 teams worse than them right now are the teams that are clearly tanking. Klay Thompson has very clearly lost a step, Andrew Wiggins is having the worst season of his entire career, and Draymond Green is no longer worth the distractions that he comes with to the team. Most importantly though, these players are all standing in the way of some of the team's younger talent that has actually been blossoming this year. Jonathan Kuminga is emerging before our very eyes, scoring about 25 points per game over the last 9 games, and has looked better than any of the 3 veterans have at any point this season. Brandon Podziemski continues to play good two-way basketball in the limited role that he's in, and even Trace Jackson-Davis and Moses Moody have looked good for stretches off the bench this year. So with the main core no longer capable of contending, I think the front office is going to come to the realization that change is necessary, even if it stings a little bit for the fans that have been there through their entire run. My next bold prediction for the trade deadline is that the Los Angeles Lakers actually stay put and decide against making big changes to their roster. If I were to ask a handful of completely random basketball fans which team they believed were most likely to make a big trade before the deadline, I would be willing to bet that most common answer to my question would be the Lakers. The lay GM jokes would fly. There's an obvious history with LeBron James-led teams shaking things up in a big way if the current situation isn't going according to plan, and once again, the Lakers are probably the most talked about team on the rumor mill, expected to make a big trade. But despite all of that, I'm doubting whether they actually get it done. For one, I'm just not sure there are any players actually available right now that they can both afford to trade for and that would actually make a big difference for them in the grand scheme of things. DeJounte Murray of the Hawks is the player that they're most heavily linked to throughout all of this period, but I personally just don't see Murray being the guy capable of saving their season. And honestly, despite him being more talented than D'Angelo Russell in a vacuum, I'm not even sure if he's a better fit for what the Lakers need. The Lakers' biggest issues this season have come offensively, because most of their role players around LeBron James and Anthony Davis are poor shooters and the spacing is problematic. D'Angelo Russell is the team's best shooter by far, and he's been put back into the starting lineup, which has actually come with positive results as of late. Additionally, Austin Reeves has also been put back into the starting lineup after struggling early on in the year and has been taking and making his threes at a progressively better rate after his early slump, making 42% of his threes over the last 10 games. They could still make a smaller trade for depth purposes, but in terms of the big splash that everyone is anticipating, I don't see it happening. My next bold prediction for the trade deadline is that we see an unexpected big-time star player get traded. To clarify, the big-name star players that are most heavily linked to this year's trade deadline are DeJounte Murray, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and D'Angelo Russell. To put it simply, this year's deadline rumor mill has definitely been active, but it hasn't necessarily been that star-studded. For me, that's not going to stop a big name from being moved potentially out of nowhere that could shock the basketball world, and my prediction applies specifically to players that I did not name before. We're in the calm before the storm right now, and as we learned time and time again from the past, things don't always go as planned when it comes to stars being traded. Just because Woj and Shams haven't tweeted about a player doesn't mean that they aren't being considered to be moved by the front offices. A player like Lauri Markkanen, for example, popped up briefly in trade rumors a few months ago before the Jazz started to win more games, and since then that has died down. Mikal Bridges isn't necessarily expected to be moved because the Nets keep insisting that he's a big part of their plans for the future, but if they get an offer with a few first-round picks and other assets that can help them down the line, then they're going to think long and hard about it, because Bridges is the exact type of player that contenders will be trying to land as an efficient scorer and an elite defender. It may sound outlandish now, but with the state of the Atlanta Hawks, there may even be a few phone calls made about the availability of Trae Young, because there's been tension between Trae and the organization for a while now, and with the team in 10th place in the East and very few realistic routes to the top, trading him could be an unexpected idea that they explore too. All of this is to say that we see weird things happen every season, so I'm going to be expecting the unexpected. And finally, my last bold prediction for the trade deadline is that the Houston Rockets are going to trade Jalen Green. This week, a report came out that the Rockets are looking to make win-now moves to get themselves back into playoff contention, and the front office is definitely well aware of what is looming in the near future. The Rockets brought in head coach Ime Udoka to get the team out of their perpetual lowly finishes and to change their culture of losing, and so far he's done a pretty good job of it. Players like Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks have also come in and helped them become more competitive. Alperen Şengün is finally getting a bigger role in the offense to the delight of Rockets fans everywhere, and they have a lot of young talent finding their footing as well, with Jabari Smith looking much more confident, shooting the ball more efficiently, Cam Whitmore and Amen Thompson taking strides forward with each passing game, and Tari Eason showing his versatility regularly. What's looming, though, is the fact that a lot of this young talent is going to be due for contract extensions soon, and there's not enough money to go around. Jalen Green was the second pick in the 2021 NBA draft because he had the makings of a potential number one scoring option. 3 years into his career, though, he's definitely proven he can score in bunches, but there are still way too many inconsistencies that come with him. His efficiency has actually decreased over time, which isn't what you want to see, as he's shooting career lows this year, and I'm not quite sure he'll ever get to the point where he's one of the best scorers in the league. If the Rockets don't see him as a long-term part of their plans, now is the time that they could trade him for the biggest return, because there are definitely other teams out there that would be willing to bet on his upside, and if the offer for him includes a more established scoring talent, the Rockets would definitely think about it with their plans to try to win now. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think is about to happen at the trade deadline. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.